Jorinda and Jorindel. There was once an old castle that stood in the middle of the large, thick wood, and in the castle lived an old fairy. All the day long she flew in the form of an owl, or crept about the country like a cat. But at night she always became an old woman again. When any youth came within 100 paces of her castle, he became quite fixed, and could not move a step till she came and set him free. But when any pretty maiden came within that distance, she was changed into a bird, and the fairy put her into a cage and hung her up in a chamber in the castle. There were 700 of these cages hanging in the castle, and all with beautiful birds in them. Now there was once a maiden whose name was Jorinda. She was prettier than all the pretty girls that were ever seen, and a shepherd whose name was Jorindel was very fond of her, and they were soon to be married. One day they went to walk in the wood that they might be alone, and Jorindel said, "We must take care that we don't go too near to the castle." It was a beautiful evening. The last rays of the setting sun shone bright through the long stems of the trees upon the green underwood beneath, and the turtle doves sang plaintively from all birches. Jorinda sat down to gaze upon the sun. Jorindel sat by her side, and both felt sad. They knew not why, but it seemed as if they were to be parted from one another forever. They had wandered a long way, and when they looked to see which way they should go home, they found themselves at a loss to know what path to take. The sun was setting fast, and already half of his circle had disappeared behind the hill. Jorindel on a sudden looked behind him, and as he saw through the bushes that they had, without knowing it, sat down close under the old walls of the castle. He shrank for fear, turned pale and trembled. Jorinda was singing, "The ring-doves sing from the willow spray, well-a-day, well-a-day. He'd mourn for the fate of his lovely mate, well-a-day." The song ceased suddenly. Jorindel turned to see the reason, and behind his Jorinda changed into a nightingale, so that her song ended with a mournful juk, juk. An owl with fiery eyes flew 3 times round them, and 3 times screamed, "To-hoo, to-hoo, to-hoo." Jorindel could not move. He stood fixed as a stone, and could neither weep nor speak, nor stir hand or foot. And now the sun went quite down. The gloomy night came. The owl flew into a bush, and a moment after the old fairy came forth, pale and meager, with staring eyes and a nose and chin that almost met one another. She mumbled something to herself, seized the nightingale, and went away with it in her hand. Poor Jorindel saw the nightingale was gone. But what could he do? He could not speak, he could not move from the spot. There he stood. At last the fairy came back and sang with a hoarse voice, "Till the prisoners fast and her doom is cast, there stay, oh stay, when the charm is around her, and the spell has bound her. Fly away, away." On a sudden Jorindel found himself free. Then he fell on his knees before the fairy and prayed her to give him back his dear Jorinda. But she said he should never see her again, and went her way. He prayed, he wept, he sorrowed, but all in vain. "Alas," he said, "what will become of me?" He could not return to his own home, so he went to a strange village and employed himself in keeping sheep. Many a time did he walk round and round as near to the hated castle as he dared to go. At last he dreamt one night that he found a beautiful purple flower, and in the middle of it lay a costly pearl. And he dreamt that he plucked the flower and went with it in his hand into the castle, and that everything he touched with it was disenchanted, and that there he found his dear Jorinda again. In the morning when he woke, he began to search over hill and dale for this pretty flower. In 8 long days he sought for it in vain. But on the 9th day, early in the morning, he found the beautiful purple flower, and in the middle of it was a large dewdrop as big as a costly pearl. Then he plucked the flower and set out and traveled day and night till he came again to the castle. He walked nearer than 100 paces to it, and yet he did not become fixed as before, but found that he could go close up to the door. Jorindel was very glad to see this. He touched the door with the flower, and it sprang open, so that he went in through the court and listened when he heard so many birds singing. At last he came to the chamber where the fairy sat, with the 700 birds singing in 700 cages. And then he saw Jorindel. She was very angry and screamed with rage, but she could not come within 2 yards of him, where the flower he had held in his hand protected him. He looked around at the birds, but alas, there were many nightingales. How then should he find his Jorinda? While he was thinking what to do, he observed that the fairy had taken down one of the cages and was making her escape through the door. He ran or flew to her, touched the cage with a flower, and his Jorinda stood before him. She threw her arms around his very neck and looked as beautiful as when they walked together in the wood. Then he touched all the other birds with the flower, so that they resumed their old forms, and took his dear Jorinda home, where they lived happily together many years.